Hello, my name is Amy Horak, and I just want to begin by thanking you for the amazing opportunity to go on this all-women's advanced course, and thank you specifically to Rilda Beilgard and the donation that I received, the scholarship that I received was a tremendous blessing. So I just really want to thank you for that. It was an amazing experience. So my story might be a little bit different from the average person that led me to taking the all-women's advanced course this past summer. But I have been in and around SROM my whole life, and my father had founded it 40 years ago. And so I had been in and around it my whole life, and much of my adult life I had been an instructor for SROM. And so then I had babies, and I went into a season where I had not gone on a SROM course for a very long time. And I had gone on one, I believe about 8 years ago as an instructor. And so I had actually never been in my adult life on a SROM course as a student. So there was so much that I gained from this experience. There's so much that I gained that was just really incredibly valuable for me as a person. But what led to me wanting to go on this course was that it was the first ever advanced all-women's course that had been offered. And I just really felt the Lord tugging on my heart to go and be a student, to be a part of a community of women, to get away into His wilderness and His creation again, and just be a learner, be a receiver, not be in a position of necessarily leadership, except for leadership as one, co-equal in the group of other learners. And so it was an incredible opportunity, and I'm just really thankful that I had that I was able to do it. We went into the Wind Rivers, which is one of my favorite places in the world, really. I've been to over 45 countries, and that's still one of my favorite places in the world. And we went on an itinerary that I have never done before. So my husband and I have instructed 3 40-day courses together and been through most of the winds, but we did an itinerary that was entirely new. And that was humbling, that was exciting, that was both invigorating and challenging. And I just felt incredibly thankful. I felt the kindness of Jesus. I felt the kindness of the Lord through His creation, through the beauty of the 7 days we were back there, through the community of women that I was a part of. There's many denominations that were represented, many different walks of faith, and I felt humbled to learn from them, the other women, their journeys, their stories, their just what they brought, the Christ in them. I felt humbled to be able to offer my experience to the community, and that others share that they benefited from the things that, I had walked through. And so there was just a lot of reciprocity, learning from one another. I feel like the Lord just invited me to have a heart of, humility, a heart to receive, a heart to grow as a human and a person. And all of those things occurred throughout that 7 days. I think one of the most challenging things for me was the weather. So in all the years I've done SROM, I've never liked bad weather. I've never liked rain and storms. And in this particular course, we had the opportunity, night one, we're doing cooking school, and it's huge thunderstorm, lightning, have to bail. And then we had the opportunity to set up camp in the rain, to set up tents in the rain, to tear down camp, to travel that day in the rain. And so those are all just opportunities for me as a human to just grow, rely on community, rely on Jesus, and really just, again, dig deep into the places where I felt uncomfortable, where I was stretched. We use the word liminal, where I was like having to grow out of a place where I felt comfortable and in being invited into a place where I was leaning into Jesus and into the ladies around me. And so, that was probably my greatest challenge on the course, was just those few days of bad weather. But then actually, the Lord was so kind. The weather shifted, And by the time we had our solo day, which was my highlight of the course, the weather was beautiful. And we were in a, we were in a basin completely surrounded by peaks. One of them was actually called Little Half Dome. And I've had the opportunity to climb Half Dome in my life. So I positioned myself right on the lake with Little Half Dome across the way. And there was some Indian paintbrush right there. And I just felt so much peace. I felt so much of the presence of Jesus. There was no wind that day. The sun had come out. And I just really spent time in the Word. I spent time, I even took a nap, just resting, being, not doing. And that for me, I would say was the highlight of the course, was just that time alone with Jesus. And I think that what leads up to that time is part of the blessing of that experience. What had led up to that time was community, was growth, was challenge through, like I mentioned, the weather. And then it was like there was just this kiss from the Father of space to rest, to be, to process, to enjoy. One of the places that I feel most drawn into his presence is in creation. It was a beautiful space and a beautiful place. Where my particular solo was, there was no mosquitoes, nothing to distract. And so, yeah, I think as a busy mom, as someone who is in ministry, my husband and I help pastor a church here, it was just like that quintessential come away and be with me moment, like Jesus talks about the Father in Hosea says, I'll draw you into the wilderness and speak tenderly to you. And I think it had been a long time. And he met me there in a beautiful way. And so I think that's simple and yet profound. And that would be where my biggest moment of gratitude came, was just experiencing him in that place again and letting my heart come alive. One of the ways that I grew as a leader, which I think was actually both surprising and very satisfying for me as just my own interpersonal growth, was that I grew as a leader in the fact that I wasn't in charge. I grew as a leader in the fact that I wasn't in control. And that was both freeing and challenging for me, because there were times that decisions were made. My instructors were at minimum 10 years younger than me, I think. Maybe one of them was only 8 years younger than me. But it was a very just beautiful thing that the Lord invited me into in terms of just honoring their leadership, submitting to their leadership, and biting my tongue when they made decisions that impacted me or the group in ways that I didn't necessarily like, but yet it wasn't my call. It wasn't my role. And so I feel like I really grew as a leader by learning to follow better. And that was profound for me, and learning to follow learning to follow and trust, even if calls were made in particular situations about the way that we traveled, or the way that we were, in one particular situation, the way that we were heading down a steep boulder field. There was a call made about how we would travel through that I didn't like, and it ended up actually causing like physical discomfort to me in the way that we did it. But it was like, you know what, Amy, this is really good for you to be in this position where you are following and you honor and you submit to the Christ and that leader, and you're coming up under them and encouraging them and helping them to just know that you trust and honor the position and the role and the authority that God gave them in the situation, even when you don't agree with it, and even when it actually hurts. Like in that instance, it actually physically hurt, because I was put in a position where I had to constantly stop myself every single second. It was like pushing against my boots. I got blisters. It was just, yeah. But what internally was happening is that I was growing as a leader by being a better follower. And so I feel like that was the grace of God. It's really good as leaders to be put in positions where we're followers, because it helps us grow in our own leadership and in identifying and attuning to the people that we lead in other spheres and other arenas. And so that was surprising and also very gratifying for me. And I've actually drawn on that very often, actually both in my parenting and in the church community that we're a part of since that experience. So I would really encourage actually people in all walks of life to go on SROM courses. And I think I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity both in very formative years of my life, before I was married, when I was searching for meaning after high school, where do I go? Then even in college and after college, as I was transitioning into different seasons, I didn't know exactly. I led my first 40-40 after college, and I didn't know exactly what the future held. That was a very defining time in terms of just letting Jesus speak to me about what the future held. And then, married without kids, and then married with kids. And now my most recent one was really just a time to reconnect with Jesus. There was no goal in that except for to be with him and to be with a community of women who are also longing to know him more. And so I recommend SROM for male, female, no matter if you're young, youth, young adult, college, middle age, I'm 42, and on up into your 60s, there is something for you in following that biblical hero's journey of going away into the wilderness and allowing there to be space and time to connect with yourself, connect with a community of people, and to connect with the loving Father.